Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film and television. How are you? Welcome to another Friday. Yep, another week done. You got a bank holiday as well. You did very well this week. Well, if you're in the UK, you got a bank holiday. If you're anywhere else in the world, you may not have done. So I apologise for throwing the BH word at you. But yeah, it was a bank holiday here in Britain on Monday. And the sun came out over the weekend, so everybody was very excited and suddenly rushed out and felt the urge to have barbecues. Consequently, the rest of the week may not have been as powerful weather-wise as maybe it should have been, but that's by the by. You have joined us this week in an auspicious occasion because last weekend the Fall Guy movie opened here in the UK. It may have opened worldwide, but I know it opened in the UK here on Friday, and I went to see it, and I'm going to have a little look through some of that. There are no spoilers here, all right? So don't panic about anything. If you haven't seen the movie, don't worry. You're not going to be seeing anything that you haven't already seen or isn't already available out there. We're just going to maybe bring it up to a different level, because if you remember, we did a review of the trailer which landed last year, was it back end of last year, maybe just before Christmas? And the trailer at the time, I wasn't really that impressed with it. There was a couple of lovely moments, and then the rest seemed all a bit very complicated. And I did seem to remember saying that it would be lovely if they came at it again with maybe a second trailer further down the line. I don't think they ever bothered. I think that the roller coaster of excitement for this, and particularly with the involvement of the world record breaking cannon roll, kind of put it on a slightly different level. So there really didn't need to be too much to do, and so the movie came out this week, and we'll have a look at that in just a moment. What I would like to do is just go back firstly a couple of weeks. We did an episode in connection with Rough Cut, the Burt Reynolds movie Rough Cut, if you remember that. There was a scene in that we looked at, which was Leslie Ann Down driving the Mercedes at fairly hefty speed through the back country lanes that were Surrey, very possibly, Surrey or Sussex, one or t'other, and Roy Street in the passenger seat, doubling for Burt Reynolds. I had made the assumption, and this is why we do this sort of thing, I had made the assumption that it could well have been Wendy Leitch driving. And then, to my absolute joy, received an email the other day from Vic Armstrong, who said he'd watched the show, and just to say that he remembers it as being Dorothy Ford driving, and not only that, but he seems to remember it being Dorothy's car as well. So she managed to get her own car in there. By the way, he says he enjoys the show, which is lovely. Vic, thank you very much for that. We are thrilled that you're watching, and we hope you will continue to do so. So yeah, just to add to that, I had said it was Wendy Leitch, and Vic confirms that chances are it wasn't, but he remembers Dorothy Ford being there, and that was Dorothy's car. So I'm pretty happy with that. The jury can now rest, and that's where we stand with Rough Cut. Now, The Fall Guy. Let's have a look at this. There are moments which, again, if you've only seen the trailer leading up to this, I was concerned that it may be going in one particular direction and that they were focusing very heavily on the love story. And that does happen, right? There is a focus on that, but it's everything else that you take into consideration with it. And most importantly, the journey that everybody goes through, and that Colt Seaver goes through from his first moment on screen to the last moment of the picture. Everybody follows that journey, and it's absolutely crucial that he goes through all of these different places and emotions to get to where he gets to at the end. That's key. Now, David Leitch, fabulous director, probably the only man I think that could get away with directing this picture, because it's all about the industry, the love for the industry, the passion for the industry, telling the world all about what is going on and why the stunt industry is the most important part of any film production. And yes, there are still those people who work on sound who are going, no, wait a second, hang on a moment, I'm sorry, with the greatest respect to sound, hair and makeup, film editing, etc., you're all wrong. Stunt involvement is massive. It may not have been that massive as far as they were concerned 50 years ago, but nowadays every single production, regardless of whether there's action on it or not, is there employed a stunt professional, primarily from a risk assessment perspective. They are there for health and safety, not only for the purpose of creating action on screen. And this is a vehicle that has been pushed in that direction, maybe from the first day of conception, maybe from the first day of conception of a script being put together, and the idea that it could be done, and it is being used as a vehicle to the Academy, probably more than anything else in the whole world, to say, look, this is how important this is. And yeah, I know that you've kind of fobbed us off for the last 40 years, but you can't afford to do that anymore, because this movie explains to the world how and why it is essential that stunt professionals are recognized in an official capacity. Chris O'Hara, in any other movie, would be the stunt coordinator. No. On this movie, he is the stunt designer, the action designer. That's the first time that credit's ever been used. That's a landmark moment. And it does encapsulate what is needed. Coordinating of action it's still very important. But maybe it doesn't pass the right message across. Maybe people are confused by the phrase coordinator. You know, you have, in life, you have business coordinators, travel coordinators. Well, what do? Well, they coordinate the travel. Can you be slightly more specific about that? Well, no. Well, with a stunt coordinator and a fight coordinator, they take that element that they're looking at, that particular piece of the action, and they arrange it. They take each part of it and they pull it apart, and they give the instructions to this performer and give the instructions to that performer and to the actor, and they work together to do the moves, to get these beats done so that they get the shot done. And then, of course, it's, as we discussed and we touched on briefly, going on location, doing the location recce, and then when you're there, going, this would be a great place to, you know, that fight here, we could have it here, we could do this, and then what about if we had a drone shot from there, and then this would happen here, and the horses would come in from over there. And what you're doing is you are designing. They are designing the action, designing the stunts. Chris O'Hara on this picture is stunt designer. Now, that's a very important factor. And I think it's also a very important factor for the Academy, because for many, many years, the idea of stunt coordinator, even though it makes a great deal of sense to those people who love the business or indeed work inside the business, I think had some issues. And I think that the Academy thought that it would have some form of repercussion. If there was to be an award for the stunt business, it would be the way perhaps that the Emmys or the Screen Actors Guild or that sort of thing have an ensemble. So the stunt ensemble, you have the coordinator's name and you have the stunt ensemble for this particular production. Therefore, the head of the department, the stunt coordinator, would receive the award on behalf of everybody else. The thing with the TV ones is that everybody, if you are named as an ensemble member, you receive an award. If there are 7 people on a production, then 7 statues are presented, or 1 is presented on the night and the other 6 are sent out. If there are 463 individuals on this particular ensemble, then 1 is presented on the night and the other 462 are sent out to the individuals. They receive them all around the world, all the time. It is massively important for recognition, not only for them, but for the business itself. So the movie Fall Guy works on many levels. If you are not familiar, if you're a Ryan Gosling fan, let's do that, right? You're a fan of Ryan Gosling, you're a fan of Emily Blunt. And in this movie, they're terrific. They're really very good. I know that a lot of people, and I was probably in the same boat, when the idea came along that there was going to be a film version of the television series The Fall Guy, and I went, Ryan Gosling? Really? But he's fabulous. He's really, really very good. He is not only very good in this picture, physically he's very good, does a lot of stuff he has to do, but is aware of the fact that he needs to leave a great deal of it to the doubles that are responsible for his safety. Emily Blunt is also a terrific... I've always liked Emily Blunt. I mean, she's a terrific actress at the best of times, and she's very, very funny also. But the two of them together have become, because of this movie, fabulous ambassadors to the business. They are providing a service, and this is what it's taken. And I really believe this is massively important. I may have said this after the Oscars, but you have 2 A-list actors saying to you, you need to listen because the stunt people are the professionals. They are the people that mean that you can get your job done. They are the people that without them you won't be able to get your movie made. People start to listen. I've been banging on about this for years. Nobody listens to me because I'm not important. But the Academy might listen to Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. And that's always been important, to get a tidal wave of excitement behind the whole thing and enough noise to stir up that storm and create, that explosive moment where somebody goes, they're right, we need... there's a big hair flying across there. They're right, we need an award for stunts. So if it means that all of that excitement has come from those leading actors, then so be it. That's fine by me. And I think they're excellent. It's a great... the 2 of them work very well together. It's a great supporting cast. Aaron Taylor-Johnson is the star of the movie, and I'd never really seen him in a great... I know you've had his name thrown about recently quite a lot because of Bond and various other bits and pieces, but he's pretty good in this picture too. And I'm not going to tell you anything else about that because everything will become apparent as you see what goes on. But it's well worth looking at, and we're going to take a little look at a couple of moments in the picture, which I think are important to do. There's a fabulous car knockdown which we're going to have a look at, and there is also that cannon roll too, but we're going to talk about some other bits and pieces, and here it comes. So, the Fall Guy, and we're going to focus on a couple of areas. Firstly, we'll take a little look at the car knockdown, because it's a really nice gag, and also I think one thing that's massively important, as with all of the gags in this movie, they are done for real without the use of CGI, right? There is no way to fake these gags. What's also massively important is that Ryan Gosling's double on this particular knockdown, Ben Jenkins, has never done a car knockdown before. This is his first. And as we've touched on before with car knockdowns, you don't often get an opportunity to practice. There are places these days where you can go to. There are courses you can go on because, this is old school. This is right. You're the double and we're doing a car knockdown. Well, I've never really done one before. How do I do a car knockdown? Well, don't injure yourself. And also, you need to time it. And more importantly, you need to make sure that you get your hips and your knees up above the bonnet. If you're up above the bonnet, then you'll slide onto the windscreen, and then you're in the driver's hands. It's up to the driver then. Okay, so, with all this in mind, it's a really, really clever gag, because he's running from A to B, he's chasing somebody, and then he gets to where the car is, he puts the gum shield in, and boom, stands right there in front of the car. And a car knockdown can go many ways. And it's very dependent on the two parties playing their part correctly. It's the performer who is doing the knockdown who has to, as he says, he has to time it correctly and get up onto that bonnet, make sure his knees and legs aren't taken from under him. It's also a case of the driver, in this instance Nash Edgerton is driving the car, to carefully be aware of what's going on. Awareness, spatial awareness. Where is that performer going? Is he going to roll up, and if it looks like he's getting hung up and he might come off in front of the vehicle, you might need to pitch the car one way or slam the anchors on and roll him off. Or it looks like he's arrived on, and this is all happening in a split second. He's arrived on the bonnet, and it looks like he might go the full distance. Let me just squeeze the accelerator a bit and push on through and let him roll the length of the vehicle. That's an alternative. In this instance, what happens is he rolls up the car, and then there's a little squeeze of gas and a body position change, because Ben has to be aware of where his head is at all times. There's no helmet on. He loses the hat going up onto the bonnet. So it's very important that he knows where his head is, because the last thing he wants is to get himself into a lovely position on the car, and then when he gets off, realizes that his hands are in the wrong place, or his head is going to be the first thing to hit the floor. And in this instance, he manages to tuck his head up. He knows where his head is, manages to tuck his head and his neck in, and rolls out onto his back. And then, more importantly, from a directorial point of view, and David Leitch has looked at this and has got a number of cameras running, 4, I think, in the final take, and he could, from an editing point of view, go boom, 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 and have a moment from each of those cameras. But what he's chosen to do is hang on at the front to see the initial knockdown, him going up, and then use the overhead camera to watch him go up, spill off the vehicle, and the vehicle comes to a stop, and him roll clear, to then have Ryan Gosling rolling into camera. So it's all really very, very well done. It's a lovely, lovely moment. And I'm a huge fan of knockdowns. You've seen the videos and bits and pieces that I've done about knockdowns in the past, and it's a really lovely moment. And for Ben Jenkins never to have done one, and to do one on this movie as a major double, is massively, massively important. So fair play to him, and well done to him there. The other thing we need to mention is that incredible cannon roll. One thing I wasn't aware of, subsequently have found out, but wasn't aware, that in the script it had said that it would be a world record breaking cannon roll. It makes it very clear in the script that that's what they're going for. And when you look at what's happened before, they're competing against Adam Curley in the Bond picture Casino Royale in 2006, where he flips the Aston. Flipping an Aston Martin is just extraordinary. The image itself is remarkable, but does it 7 times. Now, what I hadn't taken into consideration, and when you look at this again, it's very plain to see. That track, which they filmed it on, is downhill. He's going to come off, the cannon's going to go off, and he is rolling downhill. Now, what Chris O'Hara, the stunt designer, the action designer on this picture, wanted was for it to be on a flat surface, a level playing field, literally a level playing field. And then from a location perspective, they threw a beach sequence, sand into it. Now, sand, if you hark back to the very first cannon roll that ever happened on film, on the beach in the movie McHugh in 1974, Gary McClarty behind the wheel hits the cannon, and in that wet sand slightly further out and not quite in the water, that wet sand there does the first ever cannon roll. Now here, these boys are way further back, and they're in the dry stuff. And as Colt says in the movie, it's the wrong type of sand, he says. And he's taking that into consideration, because as far as he's concerned, what will happen is that the car will just dig in to the sand. He wants to understand the physics behind the whole thing. This is what this team have done. They've created that. And they've said, no problem, we'll make this work. Now, there are 2 takes, and I wasn't aware, again, from an early stage, that there were 2 takes. But the first take was a terrific cannon roll. But it wasn't what they were looking for in the film. And so they, luckily, from a budget perspective and from a vehicle point of view, had a plan B, went ahead and got on with that plan B and produced the next roll. Now, the edit that you'll see here is a combination of the outshot, so the tracking shot, and then inside the vehicle, which is actually Logan Holiday inside the vehicle. And the rolls continue as the image is shot inside, and it gets to 8.5. So that's the way, and it's been independently adjudicated and officially recorded by the Guinness Book of World Records as a world record. So that stands. And it's a remarkable thing to watch. Now, can that go any further? Are there productions further down the line? I don't think it really matters. I think the basis is that in this film, they were prepared to throw the kitchen sink at whatever they possibly could. Every single gag in this movie done for real, old school. That whole chase across there's a Sydney Harbour Bridge sequence, and again, all of it done for real. They are literally dragging that. That's not a green screen behind. That's not a CGI image of Sydney Harbour Bridge. That is actually Sydney Harbour Bridge, and the star of the film is on the back of that vehicle. Wired on, of course he is, but it's actually him. So huge kudos to the team, to David Leitch. We've admired his work for many years. Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, Bullet Train, John Wick, now this, The Fall Guy. And Chris O'Hara being given the credit of stunt designer or action designer. That's the first time that's ever happened. And the remarkable team of individuals, the 4 stunt guys who have doubled Ryan Gosling throughout this picture. Logan Holiday, Ben Jenkins, Justin Eaton, who did a large proportion of the fights, and Troy Brown, who does a remarkable 150-foot high fall during the picture as well. So all of this, it's a massive celebration of everything that is great about action cinema. It is a celebration of the wonder and joy that stunt professionals give to the business. It proves once again, like there was any need to prove it any further, not to us certainly, that the stunt boys and girls are the most important individuals on the set. And we just hope that the Academy are in a situation where they can finally see sense, like the rest of the world has been saying for the last 50 years. So, there you go. That is The Fall Guy. And I would like very much for each and every one of you to go and see that at the cinema and make it a huge success, because it deserves it. It deserves it as a movie because it's great fun. It deserves it for the industry, because the industry need a vehicle like this. And it deserves it for David Leitch and everybody at 87 North who have come up and created this this fabulous project. And if somebody mentioned on Twitter, I think it was, I still call it Twitter because it's Twitter. I don't care about anything else. It's Twitter. Somebody mentioned, do you get to hear the Unknown Stuntman theme song? So all I'm going to say is yes. And then when you hear it, you'll go, Jesus, that's good. And it is good. It was a nice little quirky tune, which everybody enjoyed, I think, originally. But now it's got production behind it, and it sounds fabulous. So please stick around for that. The other thing I will say, prior to this, I don't understand people's obsession with leaving the cinema before the movie is over. Somebody explain this to me. When I was a kid, you had the option of turning up at any point during the movie, going in, sitting down, watching the film from that point, which could be halfway through, and then you could go stay there right through the end of the movie and stay there until the next showing, and you would go all the way back to the point of return again, and then if you wanted to leave, you could leave. Or you could stay and watch it again, which I often used to do. This is back in the 80s when there weren't so many unbelievable restrictions. But, and this happened on Friday, people leave the cinema before the movie is finished. And when I say before the movie is finished, they're not getting up in the middle of a car chase, or they're not getting up in the partway through the film. They are leaving before the movie has finished. The titles have rolled. The movie is, 2 hours, right? And that's from the very start of the film to the very end of the film. I have paid my money. I do not leave the cinema until that movie has completely finished. Completely finished. And all I will say is that if you leave when the titles start to roll, you will miss out. Do we understand each other? Super. Don't go when the titles are rolling. Stay. And then after, then you can go. It's up to you. But don't go anywhere until the lights come on and the bloke comes in to hoover. Okay? That's important. Because you will miss out. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not spoiling anything. I'm merely encouraging you to... You've spent money on the ticket. Have every penny of it. That's what I do. And I love that, by the way. Also what I like, can I just say, I'm going off at a tangent here for a second, but I've never been a bit... I don't understand when alcohol became a thing in cinemas. It maybe, if you're watching from elsewhere in the world, maybe you're familiar with this. I've never understood it. Because if I drink a beer or something, I may, in a comfortable... Because the seats are too comfy these days. I may, in a comfortable seat, over-relax and want to drop off and miss part of the movie. I don't want that. I don't want to do that. I want to watch the movie. I've paid to see the movie. I want to watch the movie. Also, again, I will get off this soapbox in a second, but it's important for your overall enjoyment of any movie, this movie particularly, but any movie in general. I love salty popcorn. As far as I'm concerned, there is no alternative. The sweet popcorn, no, doesn't do it for me. Salty popcorn I like, and have always liked, as a child, the combination of salty and sweet. It's always been a thing. I've always liked it. But I don't want sweet popcorn. I want salty popcorn, full stop, and an addition. Now, Odeon, I can say Odeon, I think. Can I say Odeon? I can say Odeon. Right, Odeon. The particular cinema that I went to was an Odeon. And they have an option on your popcorn which allows you to have chocolate buttons running throughout it. Salty, warm, salty popcorn and chocolate buttons. The combination of the two, very exciting. Very, very exciting. Just want to say that. That's terrific. So hats off to you, by the way. Your ticket prices are still too expensive. That's not the point. But super job on the snackettes for the picture. Thank you very much for that. But yeah, booze, never understood it. And yet people will come in with bottles of beer and wine and stuff. And you go, really? I don't know. Is that a separate discussion? Maybe we should have that as a separate discussion. It's never been a thing for me. Let's open it up to put some comments down below if that's a thing you do or a thing you are against. Let's do that. But please, everybody, please go and see this movie on the big screen. Don't wait until it comes out on one of the subscription channels or whatever they call themselves, the movie channels. Don't wait for that. Don't wait for the DVD or Blu-ray release. Go and see it at the cinema. It deserves to be seen on the big screen, and you will not be sorry. And the defence rests. Thank you very much. Now, that's what we're going to do for this week, and I hope you've enjoyed that. Next week, we'll come up with something else fabulous, I dare say. Subscribe. The buttons are down below. Go and hit the button, and you'll be the first to hear about anything brand new that happens to the channel. Hit the little bell notification there. Don't forget to check out the Pod Dojo Network. They are responsible for the podcast. And until next Wednesday and Friday, it's bye for now.